But this is awesome. So today we're going to talk about, talk about negotiations. And we've been talking about it for about a month now. And it's because this is like such an important subject for both of us, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself and why the negotiation piece is so important to you?
Great. So I am Malika Amandi. I am the founder of the Center for Women's Voice, where I help women communicate without apologizing or overanalyzing. And for the last 5 years, I've been working with women who work in male driven industries, helping them to not fly under the radar and helping them to bring their authentic selves to their workplace so that they can create the impact that they want in their field. Um, so I have found in doing this work that there is a very kind of deep and complicated relationship for most women around money and worthiness and power and agency. And it's all kind of tied in. It's very emotional. And I found this in working with my clients. And also, it's often like looking in a mirror because I have the same issues in my own life and work being a business owner. So I think it is so important to start exploring ways to kind of break that up, that tangled mess of emotions, and just start talking about these issues because they really can hold us back. And so, um, my goal is to help every woman know her worth and live accordingly. And that really means that you have to be aware of the value that you bring to a situation, the value that you're creating. And then you have to be willing to kind of put that on the line or speak about that or advocate for yourself. And that is such I think negotiation is one piece of that, right? But that's exactly what it means to negotiate is to kind of know what you want and then be willing to ask for it or engage around it. And I think often the fear of rejection or fear of being perceived as greedy or ungrateful can really keep women back from asking for what they want or what they know they deserve. And so I think it's just important to bring some awareness around that and some tools to move past that.
That's, yeah, really powerful. Well, if you don't know me, I'm Katy Chenmazara. I'm a financial coach who helps creative freedom seekers make more, worry less, and achieve true financial freedom so that you can create the life of your dreams. And what my mission has always been is to really empower people to make decisions not based on money. And the reason for that is because of 3 women in my life that I've known who had to stay in abusive relationships because of the lack of money, because they had small children to take care of, and they either were not working outside of the home or they felt trapped in their situation, and so they couldn't really get out of it. And so that's why it's so important to me that especially helping women to be able to understand what value money can make in their lives, to have that freedom of choice, to be able to make decisions based on what they want to do rather than based on I have to do this because of the bills I have to pay. And so, and negotiations is really, really a part of all of this, right? Negotiations to me is something that we're doing constantly on a day-to-day basis. And it's something that, affects every single part of our lives. And we should look at negotiating in a way that really helps us to be able to advocate for ourselves and empower ourselves to make a difference in our own financial future. And I know that we're on LinkedIn today, so we're really focused on talking to those of you who are negotiating your rates, your salary, at work, and to be able to advocate that for yourself instead of just accepting the first offer that comes along, or just saying, I tried, right? Because sometimes what happens is somebody will try to uh, negotiate a rate or salary and then end up with a no. And then they just sort of leave that on the table and don't really keep pursuing that. And to me, that's really an important piece of all of this, is to follow up that no with something different, so that you can actually get that yes and get what you really need and want.
Yeah, I think, Katy, your kind of reasons for doing this work are so important to remember, because I feel like negotiation can feel like a privileged thing, something that people who have a lot can already do, or they've got the wiggle room to play around or something. And so, but for, the rest of us or normal people, we better just take what we can get, and say thank you and not try to get any more. And what you're sharing, in the example of these women that is that the ability to ask for more, to negotiate, it is a matter of survival, right? It's not just, to, pad your bank account. Like, it could be the difference between a life and death situation, or really your well-being, right? On a very fundamental level. And so the ability to be able to have those conversations, or to recognize when something can be changed, and to use your voice to advocate for yourself, is so essential. And it's not a matter of, well, when I get to a certain level, then I could ask for more, or something like that. This can happen wherever you are in your career.
Yes.
And so it's so critical that we feel comfortable doing that, and taking those risks, and putting ourselves out there to get what we need, right? We've talked about this before on LinkedIn, the context of the pay gap, in the United States, and it's, globally, but we know in the US, women make 83 cents on the dollar for what men make. And that's the most generous interpretation of those statistics, right? The reality, when you drill down into different demographics, is that it's much lower, that the gap is much bigger, right? And so there are so many factors that go into those numbers, and it can feel like abstract sometimes, or that's kind of out there. What do I really have to do with that? And the truth is, you have everything to do with that, because the amount of money you make is factored into those statistics, right? And so we can all think, okay, I want things to be different for the next generation. I don't want my niece to be celebrating equal pay day at the same time that I'm doing it. We kind of imagine the world getting better, and that outcomes are going to change for women. And the question is like, well, how and when does that change happen? And we really have to take responsibility to start to make those shifts in our own lives and in our own careers, and whenever we have the opportunity.
Yes.
So that's something I know is important to both of us.
Yes. And that's why I think, like, what you had said before is so great, is that this is like one little way that you can actually make a difference in that statistic, right? You have the choice, and you have the ability to say, like, I'm going to make a little bit of a difference and change that statistic, at least for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that's also why, like, we are putting our heads together and doing this negotiation workshop, so that you can actually take some action and empower yourself and be able to negotiate anything really better in your life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to share a client story that I think is appropriate for our audience on LinkedIn. I was working with a woman who was a longtime consultant for a venture capital firm. And the firm that she was working with, she started working with this organization right before the pandemic. And the roles had a very specific scope and a specific rate. And then, of course, everything changed, and it turned out that she was doing quite a bit more work than what she had anticipated. And as so many people can relate to this, I'm sure, 2020, 2021, there was a lot of just kind of doing what needed to be done, right?
Yes.
There was the demand increased in a lot of ways, and you just kind of took on more, you dug in, and that was her work ethic. So she ended up doing quite a bit more than what she was being paid for. But she enjoyed the work and the company and was kind of happy to do it in that spirit of we're all taking on more, right? So in 2022, once things have entered into kind of the new normal and things are people are meeting in person again, she had the opportunity to basically recommit to her contract. And she came to me because she felt like, I do want to continue this work, but I've got to get paid more. Like the numbers are not adding up to what I'm actually doing. And if I keep going at the rate that I'm going, it's just not going to work. And I don't I'd rather just walk away. Right. But there was some fear of she sensed the company did not want to talk about the terms. They wanted to keep her on. They loved the work she was doing, but that they were going to really push back if she tried to change the terms of her agreement. So we kind of talked about it. She did initiate that conversation, and it was coming from a place of, I love this job and I want to keep doing it. And this is what I need in order to go forward. And the company kind of said, well, we really value you. We really appreciate you, but this is our final offer. We cannot change these terms. So she got what felt like a hard no, right? Which for so many of us would be the end of the conversation. Okay, gotta find a new job or settle, right? For what this is. And so in our work together, we really looked at okay, well, what is the value you're bringing? What is it that you're doing for this organization? And can you even look at the data from the work that you've done over the last 2 years to show how the salary does not match up with the amount of time you're putting into this? And she did. And it was like, the numbers don't lie, right? Data is data. And so she returned to the conversation with this information of look, I've actually been being underpaid for what I've done. Here are the numbers. And the organization said, wow, that's so true. So what we want to do now is just reduce your scope. So we're going to keep your salary the same, but we're going to ask you to do less work. And again, that felt unsatisfying because she had already established working in a certain way at a certain level, things were in motion. And she didn't want to make that compromise because she felt like it would undermine the integrity of what she had started and really belied the expectations that the company had for her. So this was the second rejection basically of her request. So it went back to the drawing board and really laid out what would the consequences be for the organization if she did do a reduced scope, what they said they were asking and what they're willing to pay for, kind of laying out. She was the one that knew the most what would happen if she scaled back in this way. And so she was able to articulate, well, if I do this, then this is going to happen. This is going to affect this. And there's this huge ripple effect because she was very instrumental in the organization. Once she laid that out, then the company was like, okay, we will pay you 10% more. We will honor this request because they didn't want to lose everything that had already been in motion, right? So she had a tremendous amount of leverage, which she didn't recognize at the very beginning of the process. But in understanding her value and then the consequences. What would happen if she left or if she stopped or pulled back? How detrimental that would be to the organization. Then it was a no-brainer for them. We have to pay this person to do this work because otherwise it's going to be much more costly, right? So from looking at the other perspective, getting into the organization's way of thinking, how they are balancing what makes sense for them financially and tapping into that, she was able to really advocate for herself and make it a no-brainer situation to get the raise that she wanted.
That's amazing. That's incredible. And it just shows that, like, I mean, I think there's a statistic too that it's not that women are not advocating for themselves sometimes it's like they advocate for themselves and yet they accept that no from the beginning,
right.
And then they just sort of go along with whatever is happening after that, and that's one of the reasons why that discrepancy happens too. And so this was a perfect example of, not really taking no for the answer and then going back and really showing them kind of what would be a win-win situation for both them as well as, her, right? So I think that's so powerful. And I know that that's one of the things that we're going to really help everyone to be able to put into practice at this weekend's workshop. And then I also have worked with a client recently that, she had a really interesting situation where she had been working for a company for like 20 years, which is so unusual in this day and age. Right. And she's not that old. She's like my age. She's actually somebody that I went to college with. And then I started to work with her on as a client. And but that company kind of folded because the founder had passed away, which is super weird too, that the company didn't last after this person's death. And so she was kind of putting her toes into this new world, this new, trying to find a new job. And it was very challenging for her at first to really even do that, to find a new position after doing a certain job, working at one company for most of her career, and so she was almost like grateful for whatever came, right? And even if it wasn't going to be in a better position where she was currently, she was like, oh, I'll accept something even if the salary isn't as good or the hours aren't as good, even though I don't want that because I've got small children to take care of. And, and she really wanted still some of the flexibility that she's had recently. And, but she was so uncomfortable about the whole thing. So that's why she decided she was going to accept anything. And then she got she got pretty far into a lot of different companies in terms of interviews. And however, we talked through some of those scenarios and nothing felt really right for her. And then there was one company that she started to talk to that really did feel right. And they were really courting her. They took her out to dinner and had a really expensive dinner that she wasn't used to. She just really wasn't used to any of this, And they did give her a pretty decent offer to start with, which was a really good salary and also a slightly higher title than she had in those 20 years that she had been working. Okay. However, when I was looking at the salary range for what she was getting, she's in Seattle and this company was in Seattle. And so I was looking at kind of the comps, of what somebody would make in that particular position with that same title in Seattle. So it was very, very specifically driven, right? And I was looking at that data, and I was like, well, the offer they're giving you is really on the very, very low end of this. And so it feels like it's not that they're not willing to do it, but they're just kind of giving you the lower end so that you can negotiate more. And so once we were able to look at it that way, she was like, she went and talked to them and then got all the way up to nearly the top end, not quite the very, very top end, but she did get to, almost the top end of that range. And what came up from this whole conversation, especially for her, was that like she was so willing to say yes to whatever, and because she felt like, well, am I sort of outdated because I've been only at one company for all these years. And so it felt to her like she was almost starting over, when in fact she had so much industry knowledge and it was incredible, right, to be at a company for all those years and not to have a gap in her work history, and yet and then to be able to communicate that effectively, to be able to say, I do deserve this role and this position and this amount of money because I have 20 years of experience.
Yes.
Yeah. And if it was if I had jumped around, I probably would have been even higher, right? I could have probably have gotten into an even higher position with even more pay. And yet this was part of it. And it also shows her loyalty, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of companies will reward loyalty as well. So for her to be able to explain that was really powerful too.
Yeah.
To get to where she eventually ended up with more money.
That's such a powerful shift, because in the beginning she was basically taking herself for granted, right? And as you said, kind of in this mode of like, I'll take anything that they give me, as if a company would be doing her a favor to hire her, right? And then at the end, it's like turning all those aspects that felt like liabilities and helping her recognize, no, these are your strengths. This is your value. This is why you are worth more. Because of your experience and your loyalty. And also I love that you were able to bring into her purview just the context of her industry and the geographical location where she is, right? I feel like it's often we know our own selves, our own stories, and our own salary history, right? And we're not really looking at what are those comps or what is actually the industry standard for comparable work,
Right.
And with that information, then it's like, okay, I can't ask for more,
Yes.
Yes.
Because
I love.
Yeah. In terms of that, she was a little bit off the mark because of being at one company for so long, right?
Yeah.
And usually when you're at a company for so long, you're getting kind of like these very incremental increases, like maybe it's just inflation type of increases, like a 3%, maybe up to 6% increases. Whereas if you were to jump to another company, that amount of money would have jumped up a lot higher, more than 3 to 6%. It would be at least 10%, maybe even up to 20% more, so it was really important for her to understand those comps, especially because she had not been out in the environment looking for another job in all of those years, and I just checked in with her a couple weeks ago, and she had been at this job for a couple of months, and she says it's so crazy that she loves this job so much and she loves her coworkers. She almost feels like can this be real? Like she was saying, like, can this be real that I'm like loving the people I'm working with, I'm loving the job that I'm doing, and I'm getting paid more than I was getting paid before, and she still has the flexibility of working from home so that she can actually like take her kids to school and all of those other things, so it's actually like a dream, scenario for her.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to jump on that and say that if this story resonates with you, or if you're looking for a way to find that ideal scenario for yourself, I want to invite you to the workshop that Katy and I are hosting this Saturday, June 11th, and next Saturday, June 18th. It's called I'm Worth It. And it is a 2-part negotiation workshop so that you can have all of the tools that you need to advocate for yourself in any situation. There's going to be a lot about the inner work. And, I talked about worthiness and value and the way we see ourselves, as well as the kind of technical aspects of what Katy is talking about in terms of how do you do an industry comp? How do you understand the bigger context of what's going on so that you're not just tunneling in on your own situation and missing money that's on the table? Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a link in the comments below. You can click there for more information. But we would love to have you there to go deeper with this content.
Yeah. And I would love to share my screen and share a little bit of what, hopefully this will work. Okay, let's see.
Well, Katy, while you're getting that page, I will talk through
there we go.
The breakdown of the schedule and why we decided to do this over 2 days instead of just 1 day. So the first day, Katy and I will both be teaching, and I'm going to be getting into the inner work of how you can understand your own value and the impact that you're making and your reasons of why you are worth it. Who else benefits when you advocate for yourself? Really looking at our ties and connections and reasons beyond maybe the more immediate kind of motivation of, well, I need more money right now, or I just want to earn this much more. But really getting into kind of the deeper reasons why negotiating for ourselves is so important. Yeah. And then Katy will be following that up with, from the financial perspective and her experience as a money coach, kind of the factors and the things to consider when you're negotiating and the consequences of not negotiating, which often we're not really aware of, right? We think of things as being maybe a one-time decision or I'll get the next time. But these decisions to ask for more money or not really play out over decades in our lives, right? And that adds to the pay gap as well. So the first day is going to be very kind of content rich, lots of practicals and frameworks to help you understand, okay, this is how I can negotiate. These are some things I can start to think about in my own life. And then the second day, which is the following week, is going to be all about practice. So I'm sure you have been a part of workshops before where you get so much valuable content and you take a ton of notes, and then the notes go somewhere in your desk or on your desktop or in the cloud, right? And you don't ever look at them again. We really don't want that to happen. And so we've designed the whole second day to give you an opportunity to actually practice these skills out loud. So with scenarios and with an opportunity to bring in your own situations and get real-time coaching from Katy and I, there will be so much space to actually say the words, to get out of your head and practice having these high-stakes conversations around money and advocating for yourself. Because we don't want the first time that you do that to be when the stakes are actually high, right? When it matters, It's so important to get that sense in your body first, to understand the words, to workshop the language, so that when you get to that point, you have a memory of of advocating for yourself and standing in that space that you can lean on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the nerves and everything else kind of gets in the way. Plus, like, sometimes we get in our own heads about
Yeah.
things, and you're either sabotaging yourself and just being like, okay, that's okay. Like, I don't want them to get annoyed at me, so I'm going to,
Right.
stop asking. Or you can actually, even if you're not self-sabotaging, you can actually just get in your own way without even knowing about it. It's like not being able to articulate your value, what you bring to the table, all those things. And so, yeah, we do want you to put it into practice. I'm not able to share my screen, but I just wanted to let you know that, if you're able to just take a look at what's in the chat, the link in the chat, that's what I was going to share anyway. And that one on the sales page, it's like, gives you like the reasons we want you to sign up, but also like who this is really for, right? So who this is really for is like somebody who either you work at a company and you've got a review coming up, a negotiation coming up. This is for you, right? If you are looking for a new job and you're going to negotiate your salary at some point, or rate at some point. If you are even a creative freelancer, you're going to negotiate your next gig's rate, right? Then this is also for you. If you are an entrepreneur who are setting your own rates, because Malika, you've brought up this before, is that sometimes the statistics are about like how even if we are setting our own rates, we're still setting them lower than a lot of men are, in this even in our own businesses, when we do have control over our rates. And so this is also going to be a great way to look at how do you do this in a way that feels really in alignment with you and authentic to you, all those things, right? And if you are just somebody who really wants to know how to negotiate anything in your life, really, because to be honest, it's like we're constantly negotiating with our partners in our lives, our friends, our family members, doctors, other people out in the world, real estate agents. If we're negotiating for a house, like I had encountered a real estate agent one time when I bought this house, is that he was a terrible negotiator. Right. And so it's like the thing is, it's like we have to advocate for ourselves, even if you have an agent, right? Even if you're a working like actor or writer or producer, director, and you have an agent who is supposed to be working on your behalf, they may also feel like, well, you're lucky to have it, or we don't want to take the time to do that, right? And so then they may not actually advocate for you as much as you can advocate for yourself. I mean, no one has your best interest more than you, or no one should have your best interest more than you, right? And so then this is also for you to be able to do that, and to even say to your agents and other people, like, well, no, this is what I want, right? And here are some suggestions on how to get it for me too. Because they may not be as good of a negotiator, so they may need some of your expertise and your help. And for you to explain your own value is actually even more powerful, because they may not know all of those things. I've heard this so many times. Most agents don't. They'll just send out masses of like, okay, look at my client's credit list, right? And then they don't actually they don't specify what it is that you're so good at, right? Yeah. And so and then in terms of the workshop, so the price of this workshop for the standard admission is $597 if you're paying in full. We also have 3 monthly payments of $250. Or you can do a VIP admission with us. And if you do the VIP, you get the ticket to the 2-day workshop, you get the curated PDF resources, templates, scripts, and other negotiation tools, limited access but lifetime access to our workshop recording. You can negotiate anything mini course. You get a gift certificate for lunch for the 2 days from us so that you don't have to think about what you're going to be eating, and you can just relax and really learn and put things into practice. And then you also get, and this is worth the price of admission just right here, is like you get one-on-one negotiation sessions or an executive coaching session with myself and with Malika. So you can use that anytime, that you are about to negotiate something. Just, let me know. I'll fit you into the schedule, and we can actually hone in on what it is that's important to you and how to get you to more money. And that one is $997. And again, that just our two just even those two things of having those one-on-one times with us, plus the negotiation mini course and everything else and lunch, it's that's well over that price.
Yes.
And I want you to also consider that so with so many of my, both of our clients, being able to get, Malika's client just got 10% more than what she would have originally had gotten, right? I've had clients get anywhere from, 5 to 17,000, even more, than they were going to get previously in their salary. And that's each year, right? So I know that the price where you're paying for this is actually going to pay for itself.
Yes.
In the long run. Right?
Yes.
And it's not just going to pay for itself once, but it's going to pay for itself over and over and over again throughout the lifetime of this. And so you are really making an investment in yourself and your financial future by signing up and participating in this workshop and really learning this skill. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, Katy, as you were sharing about, your realtor and their poor negotiation skills, I think that just drives home also, there's so many contexts where this skill set is valuable, right? And so you might be thinking, well, I'm pretty good in my job. I've always gotten a salary that I appreciate. I don't really need to know much beyond this. I'm doing fine. But if you're somebody who is afraid to go to the car dealership alone, because or without a man, right? I've been in that position where I feel like, well, I don't know, will I be able to do it for myself or something? And it's that's the kind of thinking that we really need to evolve, right? As Katy said, nobody's going to advocate for yourself more than you can. And it's important for us to take that on, right? As independent working women, right? Changing the status quo. It's well, what are we willing to do in order to make that happen and to change some of those narratives? And the content that we're offering is really meant to support you in that, right? This is a kind of a lifelong journey of advocating for yourself and being willing to negotiate, being willing to go back when somebody says no, really kind of owning the fact that you deserve more or better in any situation. So really take that to heart. If that's a value that you have, do you feel equipped to do that in any situation right now? And if not, then this is the perfect workshop for you to attend to gain more confidence in those skills. Sometimes negotiating can feel like a thing that lawyers do, you know, in a room, and there's all these strategies. It's like a complicated game of chess. And if I don't know how to play chess at that level, then I better just not even go into the room, right?
Mhm.
And we just want to throw that idea out the window. Like, you can negotiate, you can learn these skills, and we have so many tools to support you.
Yeah. I mean, even speaking about that, it's like one of my clients was telling me, like, she wished she had learned these negotiation skills when she was actually fighting for custody of her children and in a lawsuit settlement. But instead, she just sort of let the lawyers do it, and they did not do a good job. And in fact, like, I think for the next 10 years, she actually has to pay her ex spousal support. And it's just, and every month for a long time, she was just resenting that payment for so long, So I know that this is such a useful tool for us to all know and be able to use and advocate for ourselves in every single aspect of our lives.
Yes.
It's so important that we're able to just empower ourselves, And then when you were talking about the car thing, I mean, recently I was even helping some clients of mine like buy a new car, and we were kind of doing it over text. And even though this is the worst time to buy a car because of like the chip shortage, there's a car shortage, all these things, most dealerships are even going beyond the sticker prices, they're like asking for more money. But when we were like just through text, right? Like they were texting me, they were like saying to the salesperson, like, hold on, I have to talk to my financial coach. And then we were like talking on the phone and then texting each other. And then they were able to negotiate a little bit off the price. But then the main thing was like the interest rate of what they were getting. When they started off, the interest rate was like something ridiculous, like 7%. And then by the time we were done, they were down to 2%.
Wow.
on the car negotiation. So I know that this is going to help you so much in every single aspect of your life. So just wanted to make sure that, yeah. And I think that like, you may be thinking, well, I don't have anything coming up, right? I don't have a car negotiation or a job negotiation coming up. So, but I want you, and I'm sure, Malika, you feel the same way, that this is not just for that right now. It's important that we're starting now to look at all of these different things, right?
Absolutely. Like, the timeline is up to you, right? When you know that things are not right or you need to make a change, that is the time to negotiate. It's not necessarily stipulated by these external factors of a performance review or a raise or something like that. And I think often, speaking to the client story I shared earlier, from the company's perspective, this was not the time to negotiate. They did not want to talk about the terms. They were pretty clear about that, and she had to be the one to say, actually, it is the time to talk about the terms because I'm doing the work and I'm not going to be doing it anymore, right? Unless something changes. So I think when you have the confidence of how to start those conversations, and you know what you're saying or what you're bringing to the table or what you want, then you get to decide when the time is, and you're not kind of at the mercy of some other institution or force, deciding when you get to make things right. And so we want you to have that information and that confidence as soon as possible.
Yes.
So that you are not waiting around in order to ask for what you need.
Yeah. And a lot of times negotiations come up very suddenly too, right? It's like I just had a client text me last night, can we talk? Because I've got to do something tomorrow, and like my clients who had to buy the car immediately because their car broke. And even though it is the worst time, and my first reaction was, can you wait? But they couldn't wait, right? So then they had to negotiate right then and there, and that's particular weekend. And so you don't want to not have those skills
Yeah.
and then go and then wait until you have something coming up last minute, and then who are you going to go to to
Right.
really learn these things. Plus the other thing is, like, we've been talking about this all week, and sometimes, like, you can't see certain things, right? Like you're so good at doing what you do that you
Yes.
haven't been able to articulate those your strengths and your values and your and what you bring to the table yet. And so this workshop will help. You have two coaches who are going to help you to see what you can't even see for yourself, and to be able to articulate it in a way and communicate it to somebody else so that they understand it. And then most of the time, when you are able to communicate it in this way, it creates magic. It creates a situation where the other side automatically receives it and says, yeah, okay, that works.
Yeah.
And they don't even flinch, and they don't even like hem and haw or tell like, we'll wait until later. Instead, they just understand it, and then you get it automatically, and it feels like magic, and it feels easy and graceful. And this is what we want for you, is to actually be able to negotiate with ease and grace and a feeling of empowerment too. So that's why I want to invite you so much, from the bottom of my heart, to actually join us, in this negotiation workshop. I'm just super excited and passionate about this subject, and I'm good at it for myself, but I'm also really, really passionate about helping others to be able to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So sign up.
Yes.
If you have any questions, you can ask questions and we'll respond in the comments. But this is, as you can tell, something that Katy and I both really live for and want to extend to you watching this, because it is so important for so many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And because you deserve it.
Yes, you do. Because you're worth it.
Because you're worth it. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for those of you who are watching now, and for those of you who may be watching later. We really appreciate you and your time and your energy, and we hope to see you on Saturday. So yeah. And if you have any questions, yes, please put them into the comments, and then we can get back to you on any questions that you may have. Bye.
Bye.